G'day guys, Clint Adams here, recording episode number 33 of The Full Landscape with Phil Scardingo from Gripset, Monsta Axis, Phil's Life. This is a podcast that I've been really looking forward to recording for a long time. Phil's a South Australian manufacturer and very proud of it. In this podcast, Phil talks a lot about, the growth of Gripset in South Australia and then his personal growth within the business, and some coaching and some other things. Bit of Gary V for any Gary V fans out there, so hope you enjoy this one. Sit back and relax.
Y'all ready to turn it up tonight? If you really want to fly, your hands in the air, let the music get you high.
Alright, so great to meet you finally. It feels like I've known about you through LinkedIn and through Alex now, because we've had a relationship with Alex for
great.
6 months. But for people that I guess don't know, if you can just introduce yourself to our audience.
Ready to go? Yeah.
Ready to go.
Phil Scardigno from Adelaide, South Australia. So I'm a local entrepreneur, businessman or business person. Got into business actually with my father. Back in 1990, full-time. I was sort of part-time with him from about 1986 when I was at uni.
Yep.
And had wanted to always be a professional football player. So
With skill?
Well, what I thought was a little bit at the time, but probably more desire than anything else. But I played in the local leagues here with soccer, and then I had a stint overseas. Never really was good enough to do it on a full-time basis over there, but I got a year of that experience.
Yep.
And my mind was always in that space. And then, anyway, I came back from that, had finished my degree in, or diploma in teaching, or degree, I don't know, Bachelor of Ed, do they call it? And because I wanted to be, I was studying physical education teaching, and had, ironically, started off doing economics at school. And this is a good lesson I tell my kids. Sometimes what you're good at is not what you go and do if you don't have a passion for it. But I was naturally, I just picked up economics and math at school really easily. Sort of let my mum talk me into thinking, you should be an accountant, you should be an economist, and I went into uni and did that, got the points and fucking hated it, right? Really, can I swear on it?
Yeah.
So really didn't hate it, really didn't enjoy what I was doing, and so pulled out, went overseas at 18. My dad's younger brother lived in Italy still, so all his family here, had one brother left over there, so I went over there and did that for 4 months, played soccer over there and got a taste for it, came back, ended up going to uni at the time. But then in 1990, when I had repeated that again and came back, just the universe lined up. It was almost like something happened to me to ensure that I wouldn't go again. And I was playing at Hindmarsh Stadium at the time, did my knee pretty bad, and all of a sudden just started working full-time with my old man. And I thought at the time I was going to go back a few months later, back to Europe, Belgium, but that didn't happen. And so I went to just really, while I was on this rehab path, threw myself into my dad's business and just loved it to the point where I just found a side of me that probably all the things I liked through the accounting economics side, but it was more, I felt a lot of creativity. And it was a strange upbringing at that time because that was the recession we had to have. So those that remember 1990, 91, it still puts a pain in my chest when I think of those times. 18% interest rates, like people would just kill themselves these days.
I guess people that nowadays wouldn't even understand.
Can't fathom what it is, But that's where it was. And so it was the recession we had to have. And so I remember, couldn't afford a computer, typewriter at the time.
This is 1990
and 1991. No, they were sort of the desktop PCs were just coming on in, but it really was a tough gig. And so what it taught me, we were manufacturing, we were contracting in the local market here, because my dad had developed this waterproofing technology with bitumen, and his background was in construction. So I'd been on building sites since I was a kid. Like, he would have been locked up now if of what he did back then. But I remember as a 7 and 8 year old on a building site with a shovel, and those are the days before you had any safety gear on, and on site, mixing up sand, cement, and just watching what the trades were doing. He was a tiler builder, and I got a real feel for the whole construction phase, not knowing that at the back of my mind that I'd learned all the lessons of it, but I was never a tradesperson. But it gave me that creative thinking side. Anyway, when it came time to, when I was at uni, Dad had developed this bitumen membrane because there was all these leaks and issues in construction, and all that was out there at the time were a lot of imported materials that were hazardous. And he had a really bad allergy to solvents. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie with Will Smith, Hitch, when he swells up after he had. My old man would be like that when he'd get near something that was solvent-based, to the point that he could sense in the room that there was a chemical, and his ears would swell and his lips would swell and he'd go all red. It was quite funny, but he was in pain. For him, it wasn't. But anyway, I can remember as a kid, going to some of these building sites with him, and he could sense in the room that there was some shit in there, and he'd have to get out. Anyway, so his frustration on where this construction was to develop his own product, and that was probably the biggest lesson that I learned from my dad, is that if you just want something, you got to do it. You just can't always wait around for others to come around with it. And these are pre-internet days, Clint.
Yeah.
It was pretty amazing.
He couldn't just Google.
No Googling shit. And this is a guy that came off a boat at 18, had up to year 6 level, just after the war in Italy.
Italy.
English, like in Italy, yeah. So in Italy, came over at 18, with one of those migrants after the war. He used to tell me, the suitcase was virtually empty with a couple of shirts in it.
So what, like 50s?
1955 he arrived in Australia. He was born in 37.
Yep.
And so he was 18, and he always told us that story. And then he came here, had an uncle that lived in Adelaide. And even though it was hard times, really hard times, like we started in a business that had like a $5,000 overdraft.
Well, was it just Dad and...
Me, my dad, my brother. So essentially, they'd produce a product once a week, and for the rest of the week, we'd go out and install it.
Okay, so it was just bitumised...
It was a bitumen sheet membrane that my old man had developed. He, through the frustration of being in the construction game all his life, allergy to solvents and bitumens, he developed this sheet membrane, which was quite innovative.
As in, like, plastic?
So basically what it was, he developed with a plastic film, worked out a way to get a rubber into a bitumen, but without the bitumen being solvent.
Oh, so it's a liquid still?
It was a liquid that was applied onto the sheet, and then we had this sheet which had like an oven.
Yep.
It was a patented, innovative prototype basically that we produced at Beverley.
Yep.
In this little shoebox shed. And the day I got into business with him, I remember going there, and the place was just a total schmozzle because we had a little machine, and my brother had been working with my dad at the time, mainly on installations, and then I just cleaned the whole joint up, and then we started. I said, look, we're going to be manufacturers. We're going to do this seriously, because 80% of the business was still on the contracting side. We had this novel product, and the Australian standards weren't developed at the time to force waterproofing on building sites. So I can remember then the next pitch was, okay, I cleaned the shit up, and in 3 months, after 3 months, I was out there selling, pitching. And I'd never come from what I thought was a sales background before. But it never felt like selling, because when you're out there talking about your product, then it's always you're thinking about the solution you're providing. So it gave me a big lesson on builders, on doing things they had to do versus what they, want to do. And so I had these builders that were just knocking us back, but a couple of builders like Marshall Thompson Homes at the time, they were here in Adelaide back then, Hickenbothams, they were having issues with waterproofing with two-storey. So they'd seen this novel idea. We were really the pioneers. Started laying, installing, and we just picked up more and more business. So production then started to become a 60-40 thing, like 3 days a week with production, 2 days a week contracting. Then we got a couple of our staff that we'd employed, and we got guys out there installing. About 1992, that kept on going, and then 1992, I said to my man, look, we've just got to decide, are we going to be manufacturers or contractors, because we can't do both. And you get to that point where it was a recession. Cash was tight, just getting paid was important. I can remember out there. There was a period of my life where you'd actually go and do debt collecting. And, this was, like I said, 18% interest rates. It was
You don't do your own debt collecting anymore?
Not anymore, no. But, you learn the lessons, and these were before EFT, so you had to go and get a check, hope it didn't bounce. And I'd go out there and find people that that owed you money. And they were tight, you were tight, but it was survival. And that was a recession, and I remember parking in front of people's driveways until they came out and gave me the check, and they'd get pissed off, you'd get pissed off, but that's the way it was.
Yeah.
But the grounding from that period, Clint, was that it was as tough as it was. The grounding was the lessons that really set me up for business, because you never took anything for granted, and there was never a tougher time, I don't think, that we've had in modern Australia.
So you haven't seen anything that bad?
No, GFC was fucking zero compared to that.
I find that funny that the GFC, I opened in, I guess, around the end. It's hard to define the GFC in South Australia because the GFC started in 06 or whatever, but then in South Australia we weren't.
07, 08, probably till about 2009, 10, yeah.
And then even then, so Waterpro as an irrigation shop opened in 09,
right?
Like February 09, and everyone's like, "You're crazy! Like you've come off a drought." And I mean, micro compared to a recession, and then that. But I think, it's never been hard as it was then. Yeah, look, it was. So we had tough times and challenges. Yeah, we had tough times and challenges, but we were in a situation where there was no laws to force people to waterproof. So people had to choose to do it.
You had to choose to do it, but what it forced you to do was get creative. And creative in a way that you actually had to find a way to survive and sell. Now, if we weren't a family company at the time, we wouldn't have survived
because you didn't have to pay wages.
We literally, that's exactly what happened. I remember that me and my brother, we'd go probably every month where we'd take 1 week at a time, and we made sure our folks were good. And we could do it. I was 23, not married at the time, and we could survive. But it wasn't sustainable. But you just, when you got a passion and your belief in something. Oh,
so you just take a week where you didn't get paid, and
we'd take one out of every 2 or 3. And then what ended up happening was we got to 95, 96, and things were tough too, because you came out of the recession. Australia was coming out of the recession, but the hole that a lot of companies had built themselves into, businesses had built themselves into, was really difficult then, either from debt recovery, etc. So then we were changing the nature of our business. We'd been contracting and manufacturing, and then we were manufacturing and contracting, and then we got out of the contracting, and then you had to create just a full-time gig out of manufacturing. And manufacturing is still a tough game in Australia. You learn then it's all about managing inventory, balance sheets, cash, whereas when you're a contractor, you do the work, you get paid, you buy the materials you need. But when you're making product and you buy a ton of material, if that's going to take you 3 months to use that 1 ton, there's a lot of shit that is just sitting on the floor in terms of cash. So all those lessons sort of came about. But I remember one day we were in this little shitty office or little factory we had down at Beverley, and this guy rocked up off the street, and he said, "I heard you got water-based bitumen." I go, "Yeah," and he said, "I need to take some in a container." And I was thinking, has he got a container here? Is in a bucket that he wants to put some shit in? He goes, "No, like a shipping container." And I had no idea what he was talking about, and he was doing business in Singapore. And he said, we've never seen anything like this. He said, we need to, if this is solvent free. And so we started we started looking at that, and at the same time, I had this phone call because we were selling through Bianco Building Supplies, and Bianco's back then were pretty well pioneers in the game here. They'd run the construction market in South Australia, had a really good model. Nick Bianco and some of his sales team seen us as a local manufacturer and supported us. And we were a novelty. We really were at the time. And but then what had happened was I got this phone call in 1997 from a guy at Bunnings. And I didn't know who Bunnings were. He's in Perth. And he goes, "I've just seen your Gripset 51 at Harry's." Harry's used to be the place at Mile End. And he goes, we want to buy some, we want to buy this. I said, yeah, no problem. We'll give you a price on that. He goes, no, I need it for all of our stores around the country. Now, again, I think we just got a PC in place and whatever Yahoo was back then that you checked out on. So I didn't know even what to do a search on Bunnings.
Yeah.
And then I remember driving down Henley Beach Road, Burbridge Road, sorry, and seeing Harry's changing over to Bunnings at the time.
Burbridge was Sir Donald.
Sir Donald Beveridge Drive, yeah. And so Bunnings had come onto the scene, bought out Harry's, they'd bought out into the McEwen's group, and then I thought, fuck, well, they had 40-odd stores around the country at the time. How are we supposed to sell to all these stores? Well, we were a little mob in Adelaide. But there was this retail trade division coming, and we wanted to manufacture and get volumes up. So we saw, right at that time, 1907, I saw the construction game where we had the specialty Gripset products, and then we had the this retail bonanza starting with DIY and trade through Bunnings. So I remember talking to the guy that looked after the buying up at Bianco's, George Copeland. He's passed away now, but at the time he said to me, look, he goes, speak to this mob because they might be able to help you with agency. So met with them, and they were like a network of businesses around Australia. Met with them in New Zealand, flew to Auckland in 1907. I remember it was because it was literally while I was in Auckland, Michael Hutchins died. I always remember that day very, very clearly when that had happened. And did the presentation to these guys. They wanted on board. So we had this agency. So January 1998, we started officially with an agent, and they serviced all of the retail chains around the country, Mitre 10, Bunnings, BBC Hardware at the time back then. And so that kept that part of it going. And I remember doing a budget, and that was going to create $600,000 worth of sales. I thought, fuck, that's a really good piece of action. Like,
600,000 in 97 is like $1 billion.
But that was just that little angle while we could still concentrate on construction.
And Bianco's weren't concerned about you?
No, not at all, because it was all, we branded it for the DIY sector. Met up with a graphic designer up around here, up at Kent Town, and we did a lot of good work with that. And then we had these two paths. We had our construction path and we had the retail path, and it was pretty simple. And we were still only like a 5 or 6 man show at the time. We had our staff producing, but we had no more involvement in contracting. And then while that was happening, this stuff in Singapore had started, so we got a taste of the action with export, which was great. And the one thing about Australia coming out of that recession is the dollar was so bad, Australia was really attractive for the export market. I think back then it was like 52, 53 cents
I remember my mum went to the US, she went to San Francisco, and it was like they almost had to sell the house to go to America. Like, it was just ridiculous. Luckily, that was her husband at the time had some cash, so it was all good. But yeah, I can only imagine the reverse of that. Yeah,
look, it was we got through that, but it was. Now I've got a time to sort of think about it, but back then we were still we'd come out of that recession, it was 6 or 7 years out, just got married, and it was survival mode still to just make sure that we leveraged off every little bit of growth that we could get. And we dug ourselves out of it, and I remember in the year 2000 things had really settled quite well.
Was your dad freaking out about Y2K?
No, my old man, literally, my dad never wanted to run a business. My dad was an ideas man.
Yeah.
So
he was an inventor.
He was an inventor, and so he really didn't want to run a business. Like, he'd seen me as the oldest out of one of 3 kids he had, the only one who went to uni, and he thought, you're going to run the business. So he just virtually, from the day I got involved with him in 1990, here it is, just run it. So I had to learn how to deal with bank managers, deal with insurance, just a whole lot. So it was from the ground up. But that was my lesson really in business.
Did you cop a lot of shit because, like, daddy's business?
No, not at all. Not at all. No, the thing was, Clint, back then, until people actually really knew my old man, they looked at what we were doing and thinking, what's this old dumb wog trying to do with this?
Because they thought he was crazy.
Yeah, but Italian bloke with an accent, coming up with these ideas. And then when they actually saw, because he friended a guy from the University of Adelaide, Bob Williams, who was a lecturer at uni, and CAD back then was like this specialist thing, and he was one of only a few people that could do CAD drawings. Yep. So Bob would do all these CAD drawings for us, and then when people had delved into it, they really took an interest in what we're doing.
What did you need to draw?
Oh, just details on how products were
Yeah, okay.
used
So
in
you'd
sort
have
of in
like a
bathrooms,
bathroom.
or roofs or
Yeah.
planter boxes, etc. But other than a hand sketch, it looked professional and architects. So we were starting to find specifications in the 90s, like for hospitals, etc., for stuff that we hadn't even gone and presented. Architects had
people
found
found
our
your stuff,
information.
yeah.
So it was a really good proof that if they saw the product before they met the person, then their judgment was different. When they met my man first, then they made their call and they're going thinking, you're unqualified, you're not a chemist, you're a builder by trade, but how did you do this?
Yeah.
So no, I never got any of that shit at all. And my dad was never an ego. It was never an ego trip from that side of it. He just sort of wanted me to run the business, and he saw it as his idea that just brought to life, and where can we go with it? There are a lot of lessons that you learn in family business, etc. But we got through that 2000 period. We then had to start working on a move. We then, at 2003, we had a smaller factory at Wingfield, and that we stripped that within 4 or 5 years because we started to get a big play on the national scene. We developed our product range beyond. Part of my creativity was to look at. I loved science and I loved chemistry, but I was never really formally great at it. But we started working with other people and other labs that could do development work with us and learn how to develop membranes. And so then we'd develop these products and we'd over-engineer the shit out of them because we just want to make sure that they worked. And we would never, my old man, the one thing about him was always deliver a good quality product and make sure, and because he thought of it from the tradesman's perspective, he goes, it doesn't matter how good it performs, if people don't like using it, you're never going to sell it. So he'd always sign off on something, and and he was an expert with the trowel and the brush, and he'd look and he goes, nah, shit, I don't care. It needs to work. He goes, because he goes, I wouldn't use this shit, so no one else is going to use it. And that's how he thought.
Yep.
And that again was another good lesson. Don't just look at lab results.
Yep.
Look at how it's going to work. So then that taught me to get a whole lot of other guys out in the trade to try your products out to get their feedback. And to this day, we still do that. But they were lessons we had. So anyway, we'd sort of branched out, got into latex, acrylics, polyurethanes, a whole lot of other technology, but always stayed green friendly.
So water-based?
Water-based, yeah. It was solvent. And my man it wasn't about being solvent-free for the greenies, it was more about the health. Because of the allergy, the allergy, and he used to break out with all this.
You never worked out what that was? That was just...
No, it was just an allergy. It was some. I mean, I think these days, some of those chemicals on the ban list, so it probably would have been all right. But
so it's just super convenient.
It was at the time,
His face would puff up.
But, in these days, even though everyone's environmental and green, we underestimate the impact of health on trades guys. Yeah. And so I've always, now silica dust is a big thing in the trades, but I've always tried to teach our people, do you understand the chemicals you're exposed to and the shit? And that's been one of the reasons why we've attracted good people to our business, because they're not exposed to harmful chemicals and how we deal with it. So I've got a real passion to make sure that the products we make are safe to use, both for the contractor and the end user, because sometimes even some domestic paints, you put them out there and then they emit really nasty chemicals, and that's what kids break out and all sorts of things, etc. But we'd sort of gone down that path. We're at Wingfield for 4 years. And then you talked about GFC before. We had a friend of mine had this parcel of, his dad had this parcel of land at Woodville North, and we needed a purpose-built factory. Went down that path. We signed up a deal. He built it for us. It took a couple of years because of council issues, etc. And then GFC sort of hit, and we were okay with it because, as you said, 2007-8 was when it was global, but then it was delayed in Australia.
And it almost felt like Adelaide got like a 0.8 or a 0.7. It wasn't. Yeah. I don't know how you.
Well, the problem we had was that we'd set up. So I remember I was overseas in that period, and I was in Macau, and we'd won this project on Packers Casino, and I went and did a presentation to the architects there, and the architect said to me, we're only using an American, a European or an Australian product. So we ticked the box. He said, now there's only one thing that this hotel casino can't do. And I said, what's that? He goes, it can't leak. And I said, well, that's what we do. He said, no, it can't leak. He said, because we are going to set up a type of construction that in the cavity walls, there's gas pipes. And if there's a leak, we've got to shut the whole floor down. We can't just repair one bathroom. And he goes, we've got all the high rollers in this joint. So we came up with a system. They loved our system. and went over there, trained. It was a big sale for us, but it was one that we've been able to hang our hat off because I was over there late last year, and it's one of the few casinos that hasn't leaked in 10 odd years with the repairs, etc.
Yep.
But what had happened was we'd started to grow business in Asia on private label. So what was going on while we were developing our Gripset brand and working in Australia, some of the contacts that came overseas were wanting our technology but under their brand.
And you were comfortable
Now,
with
as
that?
a manufacturer and not thinking out that far beyond, I thought to myself, fuck it, we can do this because we can make it for them and they can, we get the income and we're never going to go and sell them to China or these other places. That's what I was thinking at the time.
At the time thinking,
At that time. And then what had happened was I didn't realise that when we came back and had won that project with the Packer Casino, that our customers in Asia were vying for that project. So it looked like we'd undercut them. And we're just in the model. I just had the plans done for the new factory, but we're modelling out. I thought, got to change our business model, and realised that there was a business in doing because Australian manufacturing is a tough gig, but it's all about keeping your costs down. So we could make other product that are related to what we do under other brands, focus on our Gripset branded product, but do private label for other companies. And all of a sudden, just these doors opened up for us. I realised that there were very few manufacturers in Australia doing what we do at a good quality. And so then I had some large corporate brands, like you can think of 3 or 4 of the biggest ones globally. They were knocking on our door wanting product in Australia. So one of them was Parchem at the time, and Parchem got bought out by Dulux, but they wanted, this is just before they were going through this whole period where Alesco owned them, and they were about to sell. But it was going back and forth with the ACCC, etc. Anyway, we developed this range for them. They were going to take it all on. We got settled into their new factory in end of 2009-10 when GFC hit. And because of GFC, that's where I saw corporate Australia freeze. And they decided to suspend the project for like 18 months to 2 years. Now, we'd banked on, it was like a $2 million account. And it was like, shit, like we'd invested fairly heavily, but it was one of the major ones we were going to rely on. Another lesson about, not putting all your eggs in one basket. And we didn't put all our eggs in that basket, but it was a big chunk of the sales at the time. I think you had to start
counting some of those chickens before they hatched, because
forecasting,
if you didn't count those chickens before they hatched, you wouldn't have been able to build the building.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's not an unreasonable thing to do.
No, it wasn't unreasonable. It was just as a lesson of, of really how you map out your future.
Plan B and Plan C.
Yep. And then, so what we ended up doing was we sort of took that hit. And so things were pegged back for a year or two. But at the time, I'd had this brand new spanking factory, some really good staff were recruited, and you still had all the challenges of manufacturing, paying rent that was 5 times what we were paying before, and growing the business around the country.
Imagine electricity costs before solar panels.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's probably before solar got big. But.
Definitely. But, the thing was, I think what I've learned in business, Clint, is that every time you're challenged with a situation, there's actually a fucking rainbow and a pot of gold at the other end. And not literally like as in a riches, but in terms of thoughts and ideas. Because what I do know, and I look at all those phases in my career, 1990 when I got involved in Old Man, like 91, the recession, then when we were starting to come out of it, and then that GFC period, is that to make things work, when you're in a comfortable position, it's a really bad space to be in. When you're uncomfortable, you actually find yourself a lot more creative, on your toes, you demand more of yourself. And so I found myself then, I remember my accountant at the time sort of saying to me, goes, you enjoy this? And I go, yeah, I do. I said, because the thing is, I was conditioned to always have to be in that mindset. And that's why, now my people have taught me, I've got 30 odd people that we employ, and they've taught me that, there's times where you've got to acknowledge and have the wins, but I've always been on to the next big thing, and just keep moving on. I don't take time to sort of marvel in it, but... And that's not... I don't mean it deliberately, because...
No, I get it. As you're talking, I'm like, yep, you're preaching. Like, it's not intentional. It's just... It's a personality trait.
It is, and I think that entrepreneurial bug is that we always look and take on more than. I actually look almost subconsciously for the uncomfortable piece to go to, and I can sense there's an alert in the back of my mind, but it's like I get drawn towards it because I know when you put yourself there, you then find there's more to your repertoire. You add more to your armour, and you come out and go, wow. And so we've developed, some other businesses from that. So, we've had Gripset has been very strong for us. Our Axis is not really a brand, but Axis Manufactures, our company that manufactures, and we make product for companies in non-related industries to keep, manufacturing going. And
do you need to buy more machines for that, or it's just
you don't buy? I'd never go and buy machines for. See, the one thing about private label is the loyalty factor. What I've learned is not there. So I've had corporates where they've signed supply agreements and then they'll pull out of it, and it's like, well, are you going to go and spend $100,000 of fighting them in courts or whatever?
So what do you do in the what have you learned from a situation like that? So do you change the structure of the deal for next time?
Yeah, you try. You go in smarter. So if you know what you're up for, I think you have to also understand that what's in it for them. Like they're coming to you because they want a product that they see is too small to manufacture. You're a specialist to be able to make it. So okay, let's do that for them. But at the end of the day, if you can put yourself in their shoes, I mean, you know where your path is, then I just don't build the business plan around them. It's an add-on piece. Yep. So our Gripset brand, the one thing about your own brands is that you know that you can control your destiny. Like you've got that loyalty, all your efforts you can get rewarded with. What I've found with private labels, you can help people as much as you want, because you're really dealing with management and not owners. Then at the end of the day, like the smaller tier companies we deal with on private label, the relationships are much tighter because it's their livelihoods. Whereas some of these guys, you realise that they're just there to show they've got a bit of growth, and they move on to another company and get their bonus, and they don't give a shit. But so to answer that question, now private label is still something we want, and it helps our capacity, but you never build your business around that.
Yep.
And so our business now is built around the brands that we own. And so Gripset's our primary one. Monster's an online one, because we sold the business we're doing with Bunnings, which we developed the brand better. We sold the brand to Bondall in WA, 2016 I think it was, but kept the manufacturing. So we wanted the manufacturing, but we didn't want to deal with Bunnings on the branding side. Yeah. Which worked really well. So, we manufacture, they sell, they're happy, that's the space they love. We manufacture, that's what we do. And that's a good arrangement for us. But the big part for us is really where Gripset is now. We're in a disruptive phase of construction globally. We've had a situation where modular has come into big ways. I mean, a lot of people thought construction was going to miss the whole technology roller coaster.
When you say modular, what do you mean?
So modular is, where you've got bathroom pods, but you've also seen now that they're building buildings in US, even the UK, China, where sort of 5 to 6 story buildings are built in 60, 90 days.
Because the whole room gets craned up.
Well, it gets constructed in the factory, yeah. I mean, slabs are still poured down, but everything's sort of constructed in the factory, gets delivered to site and gets assembled. Yep. Now, what I've learned from that, and I've gone to companies, spent some time in the US looking at this, and visited I visited Katira, who's one of the biggest in the US at the moment. They're Silicon Valley funded. In 2015, had 70 employees. Now they've got like 3,000.
When Silicon Valley are involved in...
You know that there's some serious... Well, now, but what I've learned from is like Facebook, Google, these big companies in the US are investing in construction. So, Wall Street investment now is going towards where construction goes. Now, we can say that's the US, but those trends are global. Because what modular does, it brings the cost of construction down. It brings the waste down, because you can manage waste in a factory. And the quality of construction is far better, because it's not... You get to see it. And so there's a couple of companies in Australia doing bathroom pods. Now one of our clients in Melbourne is starting to do part of the modular construct, which is really exciting. So I've always tried to keep an eye on where can we fit in that space. But at the same time, when we sold that business with the Bunnings business, we started Monsta, an online brand for paints, because no one's really hit that space, and just got that on the side. as an online model, and it still puts volume back into our production.
So you manufacture paint?
Yeah, we manufacture paint. Because the machinery and equipment you've got that we make membranes with, you can make anything virtually that's a liquid compound.
Well, it's a tub, isn't it? And it's
just different consistency, but the process of polymer, and our chemists, a couple of them have had paint backgrounds because it's related. So it just made really good sense to offer an online option for it. And DIY and trade is still a big part online. And I think with what we're seeing with Amazon, not Bunnings, Masters had their, before they sort of died, they had their, they tried it online, click and collect, might have tended gone down that path. But there's definitely, it makes sense that retail, DIY and trade products are available online.
Are you shipping the liquids?
Yeah, we ship it all from here around Australia.
Around Australia, and you don't have any issues, it's just weight?
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, it all comes down. No, because we've got non-hazardous, so it's all safe to air freight.
We ship like lawn hub, those tubs, and they get thrown, and then the lid pops off. And
look, the packaging you've got to go to.
Conversation for after the podcast.
Yeah,
but
the extremes you go to the quality of the packaging and how you do that, but that gets added into the cost. But actually, when you realise retail Australia is what I'd learned about the Australian market compared to the US. If you look at Home Depot, which is what Bunnings modelled off, corporate Australia, we charge far too much with what the consumer pays for. Like, it ends up being...
I've seen the video.
Layers and layers of cost. It's ugly. Like, it really is ugly. Like, 20%.
Michael to link this video up that I'm referring to. I watched a bit of Phil's stuff this morning, and there's a really funny video. I don't know if it was meant to be funny, but it was pretty funny.
We tried.
Where there's a corporate Australia wedge of profit on top of it. Anyway, I'll cut you off.
Yeah, no, it's exactly where it is, yeah.
So you're saying
that fat is all built into corporate, because in America they still have the rebate structures, etc., but not at 20%. You know, I mean, some of the companies here literally, it was costing us 20% before you even started making money. Then you had to put product on the shelf. Now, at the end of the day,
pay for shelf space,
and freight and warehousing around the country. So whether we put it into Bunnings and cans or Bunnings at Mile End, it had to be delivered the same price. So what ends up happening? You've got to average the cost out across everything, and everyone pays the premium.
And hope that the one that's closer buys more.
And that's exactly right. But what happens is that's forced upon you because the likes of Sellies and all the big brands are doing that. And some of those big brands have got the spaces they've got because they just go in with a check at the beginning of the year to those corporate, and that's corporate Australia. Yeah. But the beauty of the internet is that it's allowed entrepreneurs. Yep. You know, and like Bezos when he started Amazon, there you go, okay, let's just start something to the side and do it differently. And so these days there's no limitations. I mean, you spoke about when you got into business 10 years ago, but, you know, when I got in business, if you weren't prepared to mortgage your house and take a loan out, etc., then you were really in the shit that you couldn't start. Whereas now... Serious. You know, you get a laptop or a phone and you start up an account and you get on Shopify and you can start selling something, whether it be a service. And so the entry level is so much easier, we're just living in such a beautiful time. And I'm 53, I turned 53 last week. So, you know, thank you. But I mean, I just find now, it feels like sometimes I'm just getting started.
That was my next question. You're just warming up? Like 53 is the new, I feel like 33 in business, but...
Look, the one thing that I had this discussion last week. Well, my dad passed away in 2013. When he was 50, he felt like an old man. Now, I think my kids probably look at me and think he's an old man. But, you know, I think there's these stereotypes that we grow into. But now, you know, all the things that you've got to do for yourself, looking after yourself entrepreneurial-wise, health, mindset, health is one. And I just love what I do. So from my end, I just see all these opportunities. And since about 2014, I've also got involved with the coaching, business coaching, which I was really pissed... Receiving coaching. Yep. And I was pissed off I never got it earlier, you know. And one piece of advice I always give to people is never listen to the non-achievers. And I was at fault of that because I'd listen to non-achievers telling me, oh, you don't need coaching. And they'd never been coached. But... you know, what I've learned from that is it's like anyone who's trying to sort of make whether you're a sports person or whatever it might be, you need to be coached to take you to places and stretch your thinking out. So where it's actually stretched me out is that now I've got a coach I utilise in Canada, and at 60, 65, when people talk about retirement, when you actually analyse it, you're at the top of your game. All the relationships you've learnt and earned over the years, you're there, your knowledge, your experience, and then what, you're going to give all that up and go on the golf course?
Well, your kids are out of home.
Yeah.
So you've
more
got
time to do shit.
and
Exactly.
as much as your wife or partner would be shocked to hear it. It's like, now I can work even more. Yeah, you've got all those relationships. You've got cash because you've obviously, if you've been smart. Yeah, and probably ideas that you've had kind of sitting in the pot cooking for...
But I've never, like, I love holiday time. I like getting on a plane, going somewhere and vegging out. But I'm not someone who will burn 4 hours a week on the golf course. Like, it sounds stupid, but sometimes my ideal day off is just sitting in my office and just writing down ideas or thinking about the next big thing.
Just clearing that.
I love that, you know, and I have learnt that you take those 3 days to sort of revigorate your mind and body. But no, my wife knows that retirement is not a thing for me. And I actually, when I look at it, the people I've seen retire age. Like my father-in-law, I remember when he retired, a couple of years later, he was gone.
I'm worried about my dad. He just sold his business, and I guess he's clearing out the last of his stock, and he's retired. And he's like you and me, like he's lived it like every day, 24/7. He wouldn't turn it off for because he was a sole trader, but could operate from anywhere in the world. So he'd go on holidays and have the mobile phone, and the mobile phone you probably had
the old big one,
and I just don't know how he's going to handle retirement. I think he's going to go crazy, and I don't know if he watches these at all. I've never actually asked him, but I can imagine within 2 or 3 years something will come up. Like he can't, not because he won't even allow it to happen.
It's good though. I mean, look, I don't think there's anything wrong with people selling their businesses.
He's done it a few times.
But then what are you directing your energy towards? Even if you want to direct your energy towards a cause, but staying involved.
I think his will be the stock market. I think he'll play.
Yeah.
I think he'll just keep trading and...
I mean, I'm always thinking, where would I like to test myself? Like, would I go into an industry that I've never, ever gone into before and do something? But I just think that we're in an industry that it's so massive and it's connected to so many other parts.
Well, you'd have so much unfinished business.
Shitloads.
But your market share percentage, I imagine, is low, as successful as...
Export's a real big one for us. I'd like... what we've learned over the last few years with our Gripset brand is that the fact and the way we do things differently, but we make really good quality products, that there's a really strong alternative out in the marketplace. And, we've looked at buyers of our products that sell our items, but our true customers, the guy on the building site, applying it. And understanding their pains and where their wins can be with your products makes life easier for everybody. So now we've set up a training business now around the country, which has been great with our GAP program. In Australia, moisture and dampness, which is the cause of mould. Mould now is like the biggest issue globally for health. And they're linking it to Alzheimer's, to asthma, to a whole lot of allergies, even some cancers. And the World Health Authority now are talking about how, World Health Organisation, WHO I should say, are talking about how mould is the sleeping issue that's within construction. Like asbestos, etc. So it's all links back. So in Australia now, building defects and dampness is the number one cause. Where do we play our part in preventing that? We can't be these crusaders going to say we're going to make every house dry or building dry. That's not our issue, or our aim. But there's things that we see in this country where you go and buy a house. Doesn't matter what income earner you are, whether you're at the bottom end or the top end. And so we've done homes that are sort of for the first home buyer, or we've done the mansions. And people in 10 years or less than that are renovating a bathroom because the shit just doesn't work. Now, a 10-year-old house is still new.
Well, it'd still be under warranty, wouldn't it?
No, that's the irony.
Okay.
That's where this issue is.
I thought builders did like a 20. They had a 10 or 20
it's bullshit. In Australia now, this is where our industry has it. Is there's no accountability. So most states, 5 to 6 years max is the builders.
So what the builder's forced to give, or what the builder chooses to give?
The builder's forced to.
Okay, so
and the builder won't give more than that.
No.
So
and then
none of them do.
Dance for it.
So then, you're thinking, okay, so what that does though, and I'm not blaming any builder, but the government have just, in this whole issue, have created the problem, because then Australians, this was the country that people came to because, the great Australian dream was to own your house. Now, it's hard, if you're in a city like Sydney and you're spending a packet to buy a property compared to what it is in other states, and then you've got to go and renovate a $30,000, $40,000 bathroom because some prick didn't build it properly, deliberately. The issue is then accountability stays that if you were forced to give a 10 or 20 year warranty, the selection of materials and the type of tradespeople that come on those sites all changes. But now the mindset is, I've only got to protect this for 5 or 6 years and it's not my problem.
And like you touched on before, it's not the builder's fault, it's the economics of the world. Like, they're the rules.
Yeah, people work in their boundary. We've got boundaries and we're working. Like, if there wasn't a 60k sign on the Kettleville Terrace, people would drive 80.
Was it Kerry Packer that said anyone who pays more tax than they're meant to?
Yeah.
It's the rules.
Exactly right.
So what do you do? What are you doing?
So from our end, we are a real believer. Our why is to be a contributor to building generational buildings, and that what we mean by that is that buildings. Like when I was a kid, going back to what I said in my history, I remember tradespeople when the foreigners came to Australia, and even the tradespeople back then, they took a lot of pride in their work. In that it was what they called the master trades, and so places lasted. Like, there was never that renovation or that building works that we see now in terms of repairs so quick. From our end, we want to make sure that we can, and waterproofing is just such a disaster because it's not a recognised trade. So we're trying to implement change within the industry between trades, authorities, but our brand, we want it to be the catalyst for change. So we've started to be part of the change hashtag. That's a real big part of ours. And creating a consciousness that it doesn't, and this is the irony, to waterproof properly, we're talking about less than 1% on the total cost of the home. To spend another $100 by a builder to do it properly, a lot of it's education, a lot of it's awareness. What I am buoyed about now is the way social media's changed the game. So a lot of young trades guys out there, these guys that put their work up on Instagram every day and Facebook, they're the ones you want to trust because
you can see that it's done.
The old school guys hurry up and cover it up so no one sees it. Yep. These guys are, they're showcasing their works. They're open to train. They want to make sure that they're doing the right thing. Their reputations, everything. They're engaging their builders. Yep. And so I see these next 10 to 20 years a really exciting phase for construction, and we want to be part of that. And the R&D that we're doing with our lab, with some of the new developments we have for products that are connected to moisture, but also, tiling systems and, things like environmental. We've got to reduce the heat absorption to homes. We've got to try and generate energy that's cost effective and how we're doing all that. So we've really branched out with what we're doing, and it's exciting. It really is exciting.
It's funny you say about the trade, like landscaping's in a very similar situation at the moment where it's not actually a recognised trade according to the government. So you don't go and become a landscaper. Yeah. I guess the same with waterproofing. You don't go and become a waterproofer. And for a long time, I never really thought about it, but like you said, if you can't sit back and wait, someone has to make the change, and it might as well be you.
Yep.
I mean, you're going to benefit from it. That's not the reason.
No.
But it means, I guess, better houses are going to get built. When you were talking, I was thinking about the fact, like, you guys have come from Italy, or your dad did, or your parents did. Or your dad did?
My dad did, yeah. My mum was born here, yeah.
You think about the buildings that are built in Italy.
It just blows me away.
You could go back and visit something that was built 600 years ago, or I don't even know how extreme it gets, but...
I remember, it's a good point you raised. I remember I was with a supplier in Germany about 4 or 5 years ago, and they took me to Hamburg for a weekend. And we're in the centre of Hamburg, and this is this beautiful building in the square, and I'm looking at it, and the guy said to me, that's only 600 years old. And I said, sorry? Well, I think, fuck, his German's not right. I said, did you say only 6? He goes, yeah, that's 600 years. And I'm thinking, shit.
We've got tiles popping off.
We can't even do 6 years, and they're 600 years. And these things don't, because it's just the way that we thought back then. I shared this story with the Gripset guys when I did training, but on that trip in Germany, I'll never forget, there was a guy, I went and saw this student housing that was being built in Frankfurt. And the quality of the build was just awesome. And I'm thinking to myself, fuck, how long is the warranty these guys have got to issue here? And the builder spoke English, and he was asking me, what we do. And I said, by the way, how long is your warranty here? He goes, 2 years.
That's it.
And I went, 2 years? I said, you've got all the, he goes, this thing can't leak for the rest of my life. He said, because the fact is that it's my reputation. He said, and that's what he said, and you won't get any work. And so it's a cultural thing, build to last. We build to what we can get away with.
I think
that's how the construction is.
That's due for a change, though. Like
it is.
I had a meeting with my management team from here this morning, and we talked about, I guess, the impact of global effects and whether or not there's going to be a potential downturn in available cash from people like us who own businesses and that choosing to deploy that against either renovating their own house or buying a new car or whatever, and how that might look. And I think it's going to sort out the top level from the middle level, and we're going to probably lose a bit of middle level business. And that's where the people that have their reputation are going to survive. And I think that a lot of people that have only been in business for, say, 10 years compared to your time haven't seen that.
No.
That if they don't maintain their reputation, when things get tight, they die.
The other thing I'll share with you, which going back to what I was just thinking while we were talking before, is that what happens when you do separate your business from the mainstream and you have a why, as you mentioned, why we're doing it, is... Well, one of the things I've really been shit at when I first started in business because of desperation was people, recruitment.
As in hiring and firing?
Hiring and firing and just what you put up with.
Yeah.
But what I've found is that when you start to have your purpose very, very clear, the people that you have, like, I adore my staff, like, because the thing is they teach me things all the time, and you have to get that right. Like, but if you're not doing it correctly as the business owner, as the entrepreneur, as the CEO, about ensuring that you can actually not just inspire, but really translate what the purpose is of the business, then people feel like they're part of a purpose. And what you do then is then that compounds, because then when your customers or suppliers or other stakeholders start talking to people that work within you, they know exactly what you're there for, not just to sell some cheap shit and create another problem in the marketplace. So for us, people see the passion of our guys because they know they want to do the right thing, you know, and we're trying to make a change and instigate that change. And so that's the big part of not being afraid to be different. And, you know, the error I made in the past was that because I was always just focused on the next big thing and just developing stuff, I was almost just letting anybody come into the business. And, you know, I had a period of time where it was probably like 80-20, like 20% were the right mix and 80% were wrong. Now it's sort of the other way around. It is, because what happens is, you know, and we've all done it, you know there's an issue, but you put it off because you just don't want to deal with it right then because you've got this other stuff to handle. But your people are your... I mean, Branson always talks about how important his people are. You look after your people, the customer gets looked after.
I think it's along the lines of he rate his staff are the most important.
Number one, yeah.
And then his customers are number two, and then I think it might be suppliers are number three or whatever, or shareholders. Because, and I believe that I'm exactly on the same path, because without good staff, you don't have good customers. And I articulated our values for this business, I don't know how long ago, 4 years ago or 6 years ago, and it's never been the same. Yeah. Because guys like you, I could invite you onto a podcast and you do a bit of research, and you most of the time now it pops up this advertiser article about my 12 immutable laws, but you watch the values and you're like, makes sense. Yeah. Or you're like, what a dick. I'm not doing this podcast. Yeah. And that's the same for staff, customers, suppliers. Everyone can easily identify what they want.
Look, it's so true, and you know we've done that from the interviewing process. I actually got my team involved in it a couple of years ago. Because I had what we called our Axis 11, and it was just too many. We cut it down to 5 values, and I realised that all the staff we'd had when we first moved in, there was only a handful left. So I got the staff a couple of years, 2018, to document what our values were. We had our purpose. What are our 5 values of our business?
Because they were there. Yeah. They just weren't written down.
What we live by, what we hire by, what we fire by, how we treat customers, suppliers, stakeholders, everybody. How we just get up and do things in the morning when we're here. And by them having ownership in it, it's now what we use when we interview people, you know, when there's issues that and it's not something you can forget. Like culture now, I mean, we talked about Gary Vee before, but now as a CEO, you are always got that HR hat on. You've got to, and it's a constant. Not that you've got to do it full time, but you've got to be aware that, you know, are we always living by, and when situations come up, these are our values, can all the boys and girls play together? You know, I've had to some people you had to let go, some you actually try and correct, and because they've been scarred from other places they've worked at as well, which is always a tough one. Where I always see the good in people.
I'm the same.
You know, but sometimes they just don't see it in themselves, and you're trying to change them, but some people just don't want change, or they're scared of it.
One of our values is leopards don't change their spots, or it's actually leopards and spots, and it's a reminder that if someone's done you wrong, they're likely to do you wrong again. But even though that's in the values, I'm exactly like you. I'm like, nah, but they could be. We'll just try and you know. And I don't know if there's a parallel there between people that are creative, that are not as good at dealing with negative human resources. Because I don't mind the positive side of human resources. Bring them in. I want more people. People. But then when you have to discipline them, or not discipline them, that sounds a bit weird. But like when you have to pull them up on.
I mean, positivity. I think it's just. I always look at things like you spoke about before GFC and issues, but people look at that and go, oh shit, like the world's going to cave in, like now coronavirus. I mean, my God, it's a flu that people have just made worse. It's not as bad as what we think. Yeah, we've just got to get. If you think about the positive in life, you'll always sort of look for the sunshine through the clouds, and I've lived my life like that. I don't know any other way. The one thing me and my dad never ever agreed on, this was the whole foreign migrant. He came from that time and goes, you can't trust anyone, because he'd been screwed over as the migrant. And I'm going, Dad, like, you can't build a business with just not trusting people. Go, no, you can only trust. Now his thought process, if I've got family in there, they'll take care of that. But what I've learned is that your trust will get abused. There's no doubt about that. But I've won, and I've got some horrific stories from that in 30 years, but the wins are far outweighing that. And you're never going to stop someone who's just got that mindset. They will take advantage of it. But the good that you get out of people when you do offer the trust, and that's theirs to lose, is really where the wins are. And, that's all about how you recruit people and how you find people and the values and the culture you set in the place. And it's the fun part of business, it really is.
I think it's too hard not to trust people. Like, I couldn't have the energy. I don't have the energy.
You're right. Being suspicious, it is very, very tiring.
I think I'm lucky that I don't care enough, and that I just go, you guys have got it. Like, I don't have the energy to not let you do it, so just do it. And then those 1 in 100 situations where someone steals from you or shares data or whatever it is, well, the other 99 instances are more than making that buoyant, and it's fine. So I guess I'm interested about the coaching, and then obviously your own personal development. How did you come to find a coach? Did you search for that, or did someone say, "Look, Phil, you need it if you want to go to the next level"?
I'd had a few of them try and contact me, and
because you're in the
they check you out on LinkedIn, or they see and then I really didn't pay attention. Then I went to go and see Gary Vee in Melbourne, and saw a talk given and got involved with a group for a year, and thought, okay, this was good. There was the goods and the things I didn't like about it. And then I'd been following, the beauty about YouTube these days is you tend to follow what you want and you get your feet on what you want. And then came across podcasts I was listening to, because I always listen to podcasts with Dan Sullivan and Peter Diamandis, and I always look at exponential thinking, and I love the word. Exponential mindset, I think it is, and it's abundance mindset, and I love that word. Anyway, started watching them online, and then I checked out Dan Sullivan and realised that they do coaching for. It wasn't sort of out of my realm to be in Adelaide and be coached by these guys over there. So I thought, look, I'll give that a go, and the coaching is fantastic when you do that. But what one of the benefits is the people you meet, the other entrepreneurs. It's a global, So in the actual coaching course, so there's a group of 40 of us, people from the UK, US, North America, Asia, and Australia, and from completely different industries, but the rules of engagement in business are always the same. You learn from each other. What's great is when you're in an environment where you're not the crazy one, because sometimes being that solo entrepreneur, like I know sometimes my staff look at me and think, well, what else is he going to come up with next? But when you're with other people who are like-minded, it does help, and it's good to take yourself out of that comfort zone, be there and see what you could be doing more, what others have done. You always should be learning from others.
Well, you can't learn. Well, you can learn, but
You can learn the hard way. I think one thing I'd heard once, a smart man learns from his mistakes, but a genius learns from others. And so always learning and hearing stories and what's working. And the world is changing and moving so quick these days. And it's also being able to give me things that I can take back to my people, and they are better at it. So I'm not just sort of dreaming this shit up. I can
gives
bring
you something
stories
to reference.
Yeah.
Are you travelling for that coaching?
Yeah. So I travelled for that.
So what, for a year or something?
Yep. Quarterly.
And then obviously monthly.
And then we have monthly phone calls and Skype hookups, etc., and discussions.
And are the quarterlies different countries?
No, it's always in Toronto at the moment. So 2 days. Well, I'll go 3. I'll do a day of coaching there beforehand.
Because you're an international.
Yeah, and you can. And look, I've timed it in with, because I travel a lot for work. So I've timed it. It sounds like it's a long way to go, but I've timed in with other business travel I've got.
That amuses me a little bit though. People are like, oh, you're going to fly all the way to 20 hours or whatever it might be.
20,
it's cool.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to stream that series? And you're flying to go better yourself or better your business or whatever.
Exactly. You want to grow, so that growth path.
You mentioned that you read 3 of Gary's books while you were on holidays. Yeah. Are you a hardcover? Like you're more of a read?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, because I'm on a plane a lot.
Yep.
I do enjoy either working on a plane or reading.
More than audiobooks? Or
look, I can read an audiobook. I really find it hard to read a book on my iPad or phone. I'm a traditional, because I do like to make notes.
Okay.
Audiobooks are fantastic, like a podcast, because you can just rewind a certain point.
Have you heard him read these?
No.
You should.
Okay.
It's a completely different... Like having Gary read his own books. He doesn't, the last book he released, he didn't read the whole thing. He read a little bit, but he stops and then talks shit for 15 minutes. And he's like, actually, I'm changing my mind, this chapter's wrong. You know what it's like. So
yeah, look, audiobooks are fantastic. And that's why now, these days, I try and encourage a lot of people to say I don't like books. There's no reason why if you don't physically like to read it.
Well, I was that guy. I've got that, but I'll never read it as a hard copy. Yeah. I fall asleep.
See, people get my books and they'll see all these notes and markings I make all over them because there's certain pages I want to keep note of. But I listen to podcasts. I mean, that's all I do in my car.
Yep.
I try and keep it like a classroom when I'm travelling.
Yep.
But I do enjoy. I try and make a habit of at least 1 book a month.
Yep.
Last year, I think I read 15, but a couple of shorter ones, but I've snuck them in there. But it also forces me to look at a topic outside of just reading emails or shit at night that's work related. It's still work related. I love biographies. I love stories from other people. But I'm reading a great book at the moment called The Innovator's Solution. And Innovator's Dilemma, and the Innovator's Solution is the second part of it, actually. And it's amazing because it was written back in, the first one was 99 and the other one was 2003, just before Apple went boom. And a lot of the things they were predicting and forecasting sort of came that way. But yeah, look, I really love a book. I just think it challenges your thinking. There's so much to get out of it. And, the thing that I've learned on going back to the coaching side is that spending that time on yourself is so important. Like, I know we tend to think we do, but if you're spending time on yourself and you're just working on your business or working business, but just to spend time to sort of play devil's advocate, think about stuff, writing. Like last week was my birthday. I got to work and I said, I'm not going to speak to anybody. I just want to walk in and write down as many things I could think I was grateful for, and just create this list. And then things I want to keep doing and things I want to stop doing. And that 15, 20 minutes to myself was really good. And then yesterday, public holiday, but I did go into the office because I had my free day Saturday.
I wasn't
but went in, did a bit of work, and because I'm travelling next week, and I thought, I had a look at it, I thought, shit, that was a good list. Sometimes you just need to isolate yourself from everyone else and just spend that time on stuff.
I've rented a whole nother building just for that.
Yeah, well, I sometimes I have these things now, they're called focus days, and I lock myself into a part of the building where no one can find me.
Yeah.
But it's really important, I think, we talk about entrepreneurship, and I talk about this all the time. Self-growth and professional growth goes hand in hand. You cannot be a better business person, and I love the word entrepreneur because it's got a massive meanings for me. But it's the changer of society. It's what makes the world a better place. I truly, truly believe that. I gave a talk about that in South Africa a couple of years ago, and I was speaking in front of an audience about how to make the world a better place, and I spoke all about being an entrepreneur.
How did that come about?
that actually came through.
You have got speaker in your LinkedIn profile. They're like, hey, we need you to do a
No,
speech.
I did that afterwards. No. So the business group,
I've done one now.
one of the coaching groups I was with at the time, they had an option to get involved, like coach you to do a few things.
Yeah.
And I've always been asked to sort of get involved and talk at business groups or students or teachers, whatever it might be, just around the place. And this opportunity came up to speak in front of a crowd, 2,000 people in South Africa, as part of the JT Fox group. And so I thought, you know what, I want a bit of coaching on that. So I had a guy that came over from the US to spend a couple of days with me and coach me on how to speak better publicly.
Mm-hmm.
And you think you're good at stuff, and then you realise how shit you are until they tell you, how to handle yourself on stage. But I gave this speech. It was I had sort of 15 minutes to give a speech on any topic I wanted. And 15 minutes is a long time in front of an audience that you've never met before. But South Africa is just, the people there are fantastic. And I got a chance to sort of give a speech, and I thought, I'm going to talk about entrepreneurship. And really, where people think that every guy that owns a business is just a prick that just wants money and drive a fast car. But it actually is a lot less than that. Like there's very few people I know like that way. A lot of the people I know that are successful don't even look at the money part of it. It's all about the cause and what they're doing, and that's the real love of what I enjoy doing. I get bored, not quickly, but I've got to be intrinsically drawn or involved in something, and it's been my strength and my weakness, because that's the killer of my time sometimes, where you take on more than what you should. But I just enjoy being drawn into something that I've got a passion for. So talking about professional development, personal development, that entrepreneurial path needs to go hand in hand. There's a parallel. You can't be a great entrepreneur if you're not prepared to work on yourself, and vice versa. And I talked to this about, we workshop our team, and I've spoken to the staff about, not everyone is an entrepreneur, but these days businesses need to think with an entrepreneurial mindset to survive in the future and thrive in the future. It's just the way the world's. If you look at where global corporate's gone, they're dying, which is a good thing in some ways, because it's just evening up the whole ecosystem. And the businesses that are mobile, can act quickly, nimble. Like I always talk about the forklift, like can move like on a 1 cent piece real quick. Yeah. But also, we talk about respond to where market opportunities are, how quick we can listen to what's going on out there. I think the biggest problem as companies grow is that they create bureaucracy, and I've seen that, and that's a real.
We're about to go through it, I think.
And I hate that.
Yeah, it's hard because you've got to find balance between necessary bureaucracy and restriction of entrepreneurship, I guess.
Well, that's exactly what I was saying about how businesses have got to make sure they can keep being entrepreneurial. Like, there are companies out there that have got 1,000 employees that can still be entrepreneurial. I mean, there's things in our business, for example, we're a manufacturer. So safety, there's just non-negotiables with safety on our site and how that happens.
That's where my mind went first when you said bureaucracy.
That's number one. And quality is the other one, like our quality processes. And sometimes, you just can't rush the process because there's a whole lot of other things that can flow on, effect from that.
You may not know about if you're at a different length.
Exactly. Or a different part of our company. Like our sales guys go, come on, what are you guys doing? Hurry up, I want this shit, I've got a sale. But, it's not that quick. But they're the two non-negotiables. But then things that we can do quicker, like, sometimes you've got a process set up on how a customer might get a sample or how you can do a deal, but you just
get it to them.
Break the rules or bend the rules or create a rule. It's at the end of the day, I think when it comes to creating processes around your clients or your customers, that's where the mobility needs to be, and like common sense.
Follow them up after a month and all that.
Yeah, like
CRM bullshit. That
it could be like the next day, ring them up and go, "Hey, what's going on?" Or,
you get a gut feeling about something like, "I wonder how that guy." Just do it.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's really where I think that now, as a business, being entrepreneurial, I'm trying to get into my people that, okay, I'm not trying to get you to be mini-me's.
No.
But
you don't necessarily want them to. You don't want them to leave and...
But they've got to think in that entrepreneurial way, because that's how we're going to survive. We don't want to end up being a Kodak. You don't want to end up being... being in South Australia as a manufacturer, it's a dirty word. Like, we get... it's your business.
You're surprised to hear it when people say, "Oh yeah, we're a South
But they
Australian."
all just label you like you're a car manufacturer. Mitsubishi went down, Holden
Won't be
went
long,
down.
mate.
You know, everyone's going
Yeah.
like. You are going to not survive in manufacturing in this country if you make commodities, but we don't do commodities, and so there's a way. And you know, Anthony Kittle from Red Ark's a really good story.
Where did I see him pop up?
He's probably, I think he said to me, he's been on the Bank SA commercials. I don't watch TV, but someone said they saw him
That's
on
where
there.
I saw it pop up. Yeah.
But Anthony runs a great business down at Lonsdale, global player, export market,
Yeah,
huge
they
in
tell a
Europe
lot-
and
they tell a lot
America
of
on the
the
four-wheel
story
drive
about
and the
him.
car. Great business he's got, but a really good example that you know you can be on the world stage from South Australia, but you know if we're going to make nails and hammers, then yeah, we're going to die, and China and India will always do that better. But
We're lucky for Waterpro, a lot of the stuff that we sell is manufactured here still because it's low cost, high air. So a poly fitting's got nothing.
Yeah,
It's nothing in
fair
it,
enough.
and it's better. You're better off making it here because we have to have air in what we sell because water travels through it. So pipes, fittings, they're all hollow.
Okay.
And obviously now with the addition of your range, it's nice to actually have a South Australian manufactured product that's not just air, but maybe it might be impacted by weight. It might be cheaper to make it than for ship it. I don't know how it all works, but
there's also, you know,
or it's just better.
Look, we always like to think it's better, but also it's the service side, it's the solution side. Like, we rarely have a sale where the client doesn't need some sort of help. Now, that doesn't mean they need to hold the hand of one of our sales guys or our technical, but the question on our online, from our website, our support team, etc. Because we're in the solutions game.
We've experienced that. Like, obviously, for me, I've only owned a landscape supplies yard for 6 months, so selling waterproofing products is quite fresh to me in my recent life. I used to work somewhere that sold them. But having guys like Alex on the ground who are just like, call me. And not even like throwaway comment, but like genuinely, please call me with any questions.
Because he's been on the other end of it. I mean, the best of our sales team have all owned businesses, been contractors, and it's a precious situation. Like, you know, you're selling the product, but he knows the customers that you're selling to, where the pains are for those guys. And sometimes if they don't have the answers, they can't.
Or they'll rush it and do it wrong. Or
you know, and there's the flow-on effect from that. And then inevitably, even if your product's not at fault, but it's been used, you get pulled in. So, you know, I've taught my people that not everyone's your client. You know, some people that just don't want to follow the process and they don't want to do it properly, then maybe they're not the ones we want to sell to.
Our rule for that is no dicks allowed.
It's a real simple one. It's a good one. I like it.
It causes a lot of...
If you get a T-shirt on that, let me know. I'll start wearing it.
You know what's really funny? I've got Play the Long Game as a T-shirt.
I like that.
And Fuck Normal, which is one of our other ones.
That's good.
Fuck Normal is basically like, stop measuring yourself against other people.
Yeah.
I don't want to be normal. Normal's not where I was setting my targets at. But when DK was here, so DK was 3 unicorns back. He started doing some shirt logo designs for all of our values because I want to get coffee cups and T-shirts and phone covers for all of our values. And no dicks allowed. He did do one, and it was Dick Smith with a no thing. I'm like,
that might not last.
We can't use that because Dick Smith's actually a good dude. And he was like, kind of like forging the way for South Australian and Australian manufacturing, or Australian manufacturing. I'm like, and he's come back with Moby Dick.
There you go.
Like, then there's the anti-whaling protester. You know. So we didn't end up going down that way, but I'll get you a no dicks allowed. Do you think you'll ever write a book?
Yeah.
If you do, what will it be called? Can you actually don't say it if you want to protect the name? But
I don't know yet. I mean,
what
my
be?
Pasky, our group sales and marketing manager, she's been with us for 10 years.
Need a book. Phil, we need your
book. She's been saying, Phil, just write it and get it out there. Even she wants me to do a couple of shorter ebooks. You know, and it's funny, this conversation has come up a lot of late because you think, I want to wait for the perfect time, but there is no perfect time.
How long have you been training?
30 years. So, you know, it might be a good one. I actually really enjoy the content. Podcasts are great. These sorts of forums are great because you get asked questions that you're not prompted for and it just comes out. But I think I met a guy actually in Canada, the coaching group, who writes, and he's an editor, and he was telling me that actually when you publish a book, most of them are a certain thickness because the publishers force you, because if they're not a certain thickness, they won't go on the shelf. So
they become a guide.
So a lot of shit's added into books just to break up space. You know? So I'm thinking I might get a whole lot of photos and add that in there. But
Well, you've got history with your dad, and
Yeah, look,
that'd be awesome
I'd always thought about, because my dad's name was Sam, I was calling the son of Sam.
yeah. Oh, God.
Yeah, exactly. But then I thought, shit, might
could be some
be
negative
criminal book there. But look, I don't know, Clint, but I definitely will.
Yeah.
And I think I do enjoy the speaking scene. I do like sharing the content. Like when we do these Climb with Scars events with the community we've set up, showcasing other people's stories is great, but then getting to, when people ask you questions, there's nothing like, seeing a new startup or someone. I went to a school reunion a few years ago and caught up with some friends that I hadn't seen like probably 30 years.
Yep.
And a couple of them were following my profile. And I remember speaking to two of them. One, she was divorced, adult kids, no one in the home anymore, sick of what she was doing with work. Another one was in a situation where her and her husband was sort of starting to think about retirement in 10 years, kids married, all that sort of stuff. But they both had this itch about wanting to get into business. And I said to them, why don't you just do it? Oh, we're too old. And I'm going, what, at 48? Like, you're not too old. Like, you can do this. It's just you're led in society and sort of all your preconceived thoughts.
Well, it's your parents and society.
Yeah, and all the bullshit. But if you want to do it, do it. Now's your lowest risk. You got no dependence. Like,
well, you've got time.
When my kids were babies, that was a tough gig. And on my first two, only 15 months apart, and that was. I remember, when you're on the other side of the world and you ring your wife up and you can hear kids screaming in the background, and it is. It's a tough.
You feel sick.
But it's just the sacrifices that you make in the whole drill of it.
Yeah. But then at 48, you're like, I got the internet, high-speed internet connection.
But it just reminded me of how, when I was talking about startups, it's not just people think of a startup as some kid off the, out of uni or high school, but startups can be the 50, 60-year-olds now that think, there is life, and that will extend your life, because when your mind is geared towards something, you look after your health, you look after your mindset.
Well, you have to be fresh.
You'll mix with different people, and you actually open up a whole new chapter of your life. So I just think entrepreneurship is just such a healthy thing for people. Like I said, it's not, as I know, not everyone is ready to own a business, and some people aren't suited for it. But they can definitely be, and we talk about Gary Vee a lot, but definitely be they can be a really good number 2, number 3, number 4 in the organisation, where they really can feel like they're contributing, because they own a department that's run like their own business.
I think that's probably the next kind of conversation after. It's not too late to start a business at 48 or 50.
Nah.
I think it's also not too late to go work for someone else in your 60s and 70s. I've got guys, so obviously when we bought Railways, I adopted or fostered guys in their 60s and 70s, and one of the dudes is pushing 80. And then here, John, he's in his 70s, I think. I hope he doesn't mind me sharing that. They've worked for so many different places, and now they work for a dynamic, entrepreneur-led place. It's a different world. And I know he's wearing different shoes. He's interacting differently with people, and I think that you can often get caught, especially the guys that are in their 60s and 70s, that they just knew that you work somewhere for 40 years and then retire or get your pension.
Look, I just did a piece on ageism a couple of weeks ago, and that was the one thing that people underplay is their experience. When you've got experience, it doesn't matter how good you've got a young person that knows all technology, knows how it all clicks and works, but when you've actually lived those other decades and gone through the recessions, the different bosses or the businesses they work for, and the stories,
growing up with a different attitude,
and being with different people, that is a skill set, and people underplay that at their age. You've probably had it as well, where WorkCover or these other organisations come and go, we're trying to bring someone back into the workforce at 50, 60, and almost like they're giving you some sort of bloody whale they picked up from the beach.
I want people to be ageist, and I don't. But I do, because I want access to these guys in their 50s and 60s and 70s, and I don't want to be fighting for them. The real good ones, I want them here, not working somewhere else.
No, that's right.
It's...
Well, look, now these days, one of the exciting things about when I look at my people, I've got kids out of uni, going to uni, or out of high school, I should say, those that are sort of talking about retirement, and a whole mix in between, and races in between that, from different parts of the world, different backgrounds. That melding pot is a real exciting thing to have in your business when you've got people from all walks of life.
Especially when you take interest in them.
Of course. What they bring to you, what you can do for them. I think as a business owner, if your people feel like there's something that you're going to do for them and you can help them. I mean, everyone's got to work for the business. I work for the business, and you got to work for your people. But if we're all contributing to the same sort of cause, and that's where you got to be really careful you don't have those people in your organisation that are just trying to build their own kingdom. Yep. You can have that, and they're toxic.
Yeah, I've talked about it. Mercenaries versus soldiers in our culture. There's always going to be mercenaries that will choose to go to the highest bidder. I want the people that fight for Waterpro and railways like it's Australia and it's their country, and it doesn't matter what else comes up. They know that their country, and obviously the country has to have their back. Yeah. So that when times are tough, we do protect our soldiers. Yeah. And you find you have a better quality team, and Gary talks about that as well. You've heard him talk about it. So I guess we probably should finish up. I don't want to keep this going for too long. I'm enjoying this, and I think there probably needs to be probably a number 2. What's next for you and your businesses? Like, are you going to stay as an active director forever and then move into the speaking, or have you got unfinished business in?
Look, I think with my businesses, I'm trying to grow my team to be better at what they do, and really open up the opportunities for them to move in as high up or expand out where they want to go. Yep. I can't see myself. Like, I enjoy doing the talking and the speaking scene. I'd like to, things like a book, podcast, presentations, I'd like to get out there and do more of it, to more not so much from a monetisation piece, but to share the story for those that want to listen and we can add value. I'm starting to sense now that there's probably, I call it a market, but there's an opportunity to actually talk to the 40 and 50-year-olds more so than everyone's been directing towards the 20-year-olds, because I sense that there's a lot of these people that are understanding that their lives are going to be longer than their parents. So what are they going to do at 70 years old and sitting at home, or on the golf course on a fishing boat every day of the week? Like, you need to be out there and can contribute. But I can't see myself never being in business. So I want to make our Gripset brand global. That's my aim. And so while I've got my team, and we want to manufacture from Adelaide to the point that until this factory can't service the market, then we'd look elsewhere.
But still stay in Australia?
Stay in Australia, definitely, Australia is key. But making it, when I say global, making our brand global. So, we've got the brands, as you've seen in our market here, that we compete against that are foreign owned, but they've got entities here. I'd like to look at the reverse, and implementing technology, into Asia. If we could crack the North American
license or however it worked,
whatever you could export from here, or if you really build it up, then you could duplicate a plant elsewhere. But the European market's still huge. North American market is huge, but I just don't like putting it.
Stands out.
Definitely.
China at the moment.
Definitely. I just don't want to put limits on anything that I do.
So it's just say yes as it comes up if it makes sense.
I mean, look, if it feels good, I hate applying limitations on anything. That's why, one thing I always talk in my podcast is always make your future bigger than your past. And people put limits on themselves if they choose to. If they don't, like you said, fuck normal. That's exactly how people should live their lives. When you look at all the people who've got limitations, it's fear of worrying about what other people think. And I've been conditioned like that in the past, but you've just got to try, and I teach my kids that, and I try and teach my staff that, you just got to forget about what other people think. If it feels good, you can look yourself in the mirror, you've done the right thing. There's always going to be someone out there that thinks you're an arsehole or doesn't like you. You can't be out there trying to be popular. You've got to go there doing what you think's right.
Do you.
And do you, exactly right. And so, no limitations for me, Clint. I just, we'll keep being on the scene somewhere.
I look forward to watching this No Limits growth. If people want to check you out, you've got, I'm assuming you've got like a list of socials. Is it best to stick them underneath the video?
Yeah, do that. Phil Scar on Instagram and Facebook, I think, or Phil Scardingo on Facebook, and then
Phil Scar on Instagram. Is that where you play on Instagram the most?
And Facebook as well. Yeah, LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a bit more B2B, but I'm want to change that a little bit with LinkedIn. And then obviously I've got to climb with Scar's little community that we do. We do a podcast and do a few events, and we'll no doubt get you on that. But yeah, there's not too many. The reason I went with Phil Scar because a lot of people spell the name wrong. They go Dingo instead of Dino.
My wife was like, "Who's Phil?" She saw it in my calendar. She's like, "Phil Scar." I'm like, "I'm not sure, but I'll find out."
Yeah, the G's a bit silent, but yeah, it's
Scardingo.
Dino. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's the Italian pronunciation. I should know. All right, thank you so much for
Thanks,
coming in.
Clint. Great, mate.